Money is really, really greedy, right? Money wants to make money.
Get around the right people, take action, actually do something. It doesn't matter if you're a 1% owner, 5% owner, 10% owner.
If you're not doing that, what are you actually doing? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. If you're not committed, don't spend 10 grand. That's a waste of money. Under the 100% assumption that I'm going to own the property. I don't want to. I don't want you not to be successful. I need you to be successful. You have our money in your hands. I've done this 100 times and has amassed a net worth net of 50 or $60 million.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm excited for today's guest. We have Joel Kraut. He is the co-founder and managing director of BRRRR Loans. I'm sure you guys have heard that acronym before, and we're definitely going to get into it on the podcast. But he's been involved in real estate for a very long time, probably longer than Jesse's been alive. And he's got all kinds of knowledge he's going to share with us today. So I'm really excited. Thanks for coming on the show.
You know, it's crazy when people do that. Somebody said, yeah, he's been around for like 40 years. I'm like, hey, whoa, don't rush it. Only 30.
Yeah.
It's like...
So literally, yeah, Jesse's under 30. So
I'm 97. I was born in 97.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Just as a quick aside, one of the reasons I'm still active in the real estate market as a flipper is we're in events like this. We're at different events and we're a speaker. And people like Jesse, and Jesse's actually old, right? There's 21-year-olds. Last night there was a 19-year-old who was already wholesaling properties. And you have to stay relevant in front of them. Me telling cute stories from 2001 is kind of interesting, but after a while, they're just kind of cute stories. So like, what does it have to do with today? We don't even use the same building materials. Constantly being in the market actively and a doer yourself is very important for our business. I mean, you guys are active investors yourselves. You see it from both sides, and it definitely changes how we all look at things, how we do things, how we interact with others, the respect we show them. Because, hey, you don't get this sexy, that kind of haircut without taking a few punches in the face, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's real estate. I mean, it's not as easy as everybody wants on Instagram, but it's a very powerful tool and can create unbelievable opportunities for you and your family long term.
Yeah, 100%. I'm 30. I'm about to turn 31 in, about a month. And I've got some gray hairs in my beard. It's coming in. And I think it's probably from the last couple of years of real estate. Like you said, it's not easy. It's not necessarily hard, but it's like, it's not rocket science, but it's not like, it's hard work for sure. But I think it's interesting. You mentioned that, you go to these events and stuff and you guys are very active, and there's like all these people starting out so early, wholesaling and flipping and residential and stuff. But I'm curious what you think. Like you said, you do a lot of commercial stuff. Do you see a lot of younger people in commercial real estate? Because part of our goal in this podcast is kind of open the eyes of people that you don't have to start in residential. Like that's what I thought. You don't have to. You can start in commercial. And a lot of times when me and Jesse go talk to people and we say we have, several buildings and they get asking us about stuff, they're shocked because they're like, you're 30 years old and, you're 27 or whatever, and you guys have commercial buildings. And that's not to toot our own horn by any means. We're very thankful because the company we're at has helped us really open our eyes to this. But what do you see out there? Do you see a lot of like younger people in the commercial real estate game?
So we don't see as many as we would hope to. Most people, they start out, they don't have that much money. And the natural go-to is to go to one of these events. They talk about buying things with no money down and really, really cheap. And they don't really have a blueprint because they personally don't have the experience of how to help people move into the commercial market. Look, everyone who's had a lot of residential tenants doesn't love them. I don't care what they say. It is the truth. There is nobody like me in America that owns 100 doors in a D neighborhood who is thrilled every day. They are miserable.
Not a chance.
Do they make some money? Yes. But between 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern and midnight, they have the shakes waiting for those nasty calls, things that are going to happen. On the commercial side of the world, to me, one of the beauties of it is around 8 p.m. Eastern time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, your life goes back to normal. I mean, you really just don't have, hey, my toilet is stuffed up or, the tenant is involved. Most of the leases are incorporating them taking care of a lot of repairs and maintenance. They have other types of clauses in those leases. So I would highly recommend to people, if they're going to go learn how to syndicate and spend that money, why not apply it to something like a commercial piece of property? A lot of the aspects are similar, but quiet, insistent, more professional tenancy, people who can pay the bills instead of hoping every month, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest fears of the landlord. You have 30 days on the calendar. You get paid one of them. Sometimes they've figured out how to get paid two. Others with short-term rental have actually figured out the mantra, right? Now we can get people to pay us before they use. But in reality, most people have these standalone long-term tenants, and they're hoping every 30 days. In the commercial world, it's very different, as you guys know and experience. You're truly vetting a tenant. You're starting to look into their financials. You're getting an understanding under the hood of what they look like before they're taking ownership of your property, right? Yeah. Because once they move in, they feel like the owner, not you anymore. I know they're paying us, but it doesn't feel the same way to them. And rightfully so. A lot of them are owner-occupied businesses, which banks across America love. So if you're an owner-operator, and one of the people we talked to last night, who I mentioned to you off screen, she's going to buy a strip center, 4 tenants. One of them is her partner who operates there. So she's got boots on the ground. Yes, it can be good and bad that all the other tenants know you're one of the owners. They can come over, have coffee, complain. I get it. But for the most part, having those boots on the ground when you're a passive investor who's putting up the money is fantastic. You really have your arms around things, and you have someone who could take care of any general maintenance quickly. If there is an issue that comes up and you have to go to the zoning board or the planning board, you have someone who's local. Everyone reacts to those types of people much better than us, quote, sophisticated investors, right? No one really loves them on the planning board.
Yeah, for sure.
And the zoning boards, right? We're evil people. We make money. That's at least a thought. Whether it happens is different, but that's sort of the train of thought out there. So I agree with you guys.
Joel, I want to ask a question, back up just a second. We talked about, new people getting into commercial real estate and starting in commercial real estate. What do you think is the biggest mind block for people that think that they have to start in residential first? What do you think is like blocking people from starting in commercial real estate?
I think it's twofold. One, people need to get out of the noise in their own head. I don't know much about it. I haven't done it, or I don't have any money. Mm-hmm. To me, real estate is this triangle of 3, right? You need 2 of the 3 things. You need to show people you work hard and consistently, which you guys have been doing for years. You need to understand how to begin to learn how to source deals, which you guys have been learning, doing, and executing for years. And 3, you need to either have money, have access to it, know where to get it. You don't have to physically have it. And that's like this big misnomer in people's heads. Money is really, really greedy. Right? Money wants to make money. Yeah. If you really can go learn how to find deals, the money will filter to you. People are, I never spoke to anybody about asking for, you're not asking for money. That's one of the big things in your own head. That's a story you're telling yourself. If I approach Graham with a great opportunity and I take him through the process of how we execute it and how he as an investor makes money and the type of input he can have, and or minimal control, but sometimes depending on how you set the partnership up, people like that. They want that. Their money needs that. Their money needs that. There's over $1 trillion sitting in retirement accounts undeployed, earning what, 1 to 3%? I mean, inflation's higher. You guys travel, I travel. You go in a hotel lobby at night, you eat a hamburger, fries, and a Coke. It's $30 in Charlotte, in other cities, right? $30. You need to protect your future, and this is a great way to do it. I mean, cash flow is really good. Growth over time is really good. Tenancy is much calmer than the residential side. You have infinitely less turnover to deal with. And even, God forbid you get there, the eviction process is much more professionalized with the commercial world than how you're influenced and affected by the courts on a rolling basis in the residential world, right? The rules of engagement in the resi side can change every time there's an election, every time there's local boards being readjusted, and you're not quite as subjected to that on the commercial world side. So I like it. We have lots of clients that have been super successful, medical arts buildings, warehouses, self-storage, commercial strip centers, super centers, larger type of residential buildings with 100 units. So I'm a big fan. And until Amazon, Google really take that away and teach us how to get that pill and magically, disappear overnight, I'm a big believer in this type of stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I met with a guy yesterday for lunch who reached out to me, newer broker, and sees some of the stuff we're posting, and was just wanted to get lunch and talk about real estate and stuff. And I was telling him, I was like, man, if there's anything I could have told myself when I first started in commercial real estate, it's that you do not get into deals as soon as you can. What you said is the biggest thing blocking people is 100% accurate. They think, oh, well, to get into a commercial real estate deal, I got to have $300,000 in the bank. That is not true. Right. That is not true at all. Everything we bought so far, Jesse and we've spent maybe less than $10K each probably. And we bought a lot of buildings so far. And that's just from learning how the game works. There's all kinds of different options to get into it. But that's kind of what I'm saying. If I could go back and tell myself or anybody listening who's brand new or just wanting to get into it, don't have the mindset block or whatever you call it, that you have to have a bunch of money to start. Yeah. You do have to know what you're doing, or at least partner with someone. Like you either have to work really hard and partner with someone who knows what they're doing and you can find the deal, or you can have the knowledge and put the deal together and then raise the money. And like we said before, you shouldn't go out and raise money if you haven't done a deal before. Make sure you partner with somebody. But, you get in these deals and you do one or two or three, and then you learn how to do it. And then you can go out and start raising money. But that doesn't mean you can't get a little sliver of a deal for no money and be a part of it and learn. So, I mean, I feel like that's just such a huge point.
At one of the events we did last night, a local real estate investment organization, that was one of the points we tried to make. Too many people in our country are really hung up on 100. They want to own 100% of everything. Yep. They want 100%, 100%, 100%. Well, we did the simple math example, right? What's 100 times 0? Zero. But what's 50 times 2? It's 100. So the power of joint ventures, the power of partnerships, these are the ways to get started, right? Just what you're saying. And I know people like, well, I don't know about the market. I don't know about this. If you're starting and you have no legacy problems resting on your shoulders and back, weighing you down every day, you should view the market right now as sweet opportunity. The market has shifted. People want to get out. I don't care about their wants other than to understand what they need. What do they need, right? Ask questions and then shut up. Listen to what they're really telling you. Because to your guys' points, you can get into a lot of deals with a lot less upfront money than you think. People think commercial real estate, I got to have millions of dollars. No, that's not the case. Whoever understands how to reposition real estate the next decade is going to be the gigantic winner. That's the truth, right? People are, this office building, nobody does office anymore. Okay, what can you do with it? What will the zoning board allow you to do with it? 5 years ago, almost no one in America had heard of pickleball.
Yeah.
Right? Now, big box retail is going dark or becoming pickleball America, right? Yeah. As we travel America. So it's people like that with entrepreneurial spirits who can think and aren't limited. I hate to say this because no pun intended, but limited by the box in front of them. These are the big winners. I mean, think about that. Those leases have monster go dark clauses, but also the landlords have the legal obligation to go try to replace that tenant while XYZ credit tenant is paying you full bill. But in doing so, they may find a tenant like a pickleball organization or a distribution company that can't afford the full rent. Well, to Walgreens, who wants out, if they're paying $30,000 a month and they're now down to 12, they'll pay the 12 and now pickleball or distribution can pay 18. Landlord's happy, right? They're locked in. They still got 40% of their number or 30% of their number from a credit tenant, and they have another company in there operating on a full-time basis because everything works better when it's occupied, right?
For sure.
All buildings operate better occupied than vacant, even when you get paid.
Absolutely. So I want to walk you through, and you can give us advice on this, and also our audience through kind of a deal we just did. We basically just did a BRRRR in the commercial world. So we've successfully gotten all the way through it. So we didn't want to talk too much about it until we proved the concept. We'd heard people. I'm sure I don't know if you've heard of Mike and Bo. Those guys are really big in Texas. They're big inspiration of ours. They buy light industrial buildings in Texas, and they do. We had their acquisition guy on a while back, but they do BRRRRs all the time, and they talk about finding really good deals. So we found a deal where we borrowed the down payment. So it's like $450,000 deal. We borrowed the down payment and got the seller to finance the rest. The down payment, we borrowed it with hard money for 6 months with another 6-month term or 3-month term. And then that gave us the time to buy the property with super under market rents. We did light renovation and we planned on releasing it. The tenant actually ended up staying and paying, coming up to market. So all we did was light renovation, reposition the tenant, sign a new lease with him. And then we took it to the regular bank and we just refinanced that and closed it. I don't know, maybe like a couple weeks ago. And so, that's basically a BRRRR. I'm curious if you see people doing that, if you would do anything differently, if like what you guys do could help with something like that for people listening and also us. I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on that.
So first, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome stuff. That is exactly what people need to hear about. It demystifies it, takes the fear out of it. You give them a blueprint to follow. And when people calm down, they're amazed what they can really accomplish, right? When they just slow themselves down enough to think through what they're doing. What you guys just did is fantastic. People like us, we all want skin in the game. How do you get your skin in the game? A lot of us are going to go to friends and family. People are afraid to go to friends and family. They go to one-touch business associates. People who are a little more business-oriented kind of can get their arms around that. You can get the down payment. There are lenders around the country that will do these bridge loans with allowing you to bring the money from a third party as you're making the guarantee, and your entity has taken that money into your entity, and then your entity is bringing that money to the table. So to the lender, it looks like equity, right? And that's what they want to see. Some cases, we have one scenario where we can lend 75% of your purchase price on that deal. You can have 15% held by the seller, and then you can put in 10%, right? And then or your perception is, your belief, I should say, not perception, really you believe, right? You execute the deal. You believe by making some renovations, by adjusting the rent basis, maybe there's some opportunity on the expense side, and putting that back together within 12 months or 18, you have the opportunity to get to full market value, unlocking that value. And then banks around the country, they're looking for those types of properties, and they'll refinance you probably up to 75%. If you have an owner occupied tilt to it, maybe 80%. We have a couple of banks that even do 85, which I think is crazy, but true. So there is great opportunity there. And again, you're ending up with a much more stable process and product than having 4 residential tenants. They hate each other. They're screaming at each other. They're banging into each other's cars in the parking lot. The music's too loud. The toilet's overflowing. Kid just broke. I've heard all those stories ad nauseum. I've had to live them as a landlord. One of the things that I love about what you're doing is you're taking entrepreneurial spirit, you're applying it, you're being a little creative, but you're working within the system because you understand the end game, right? You're tailoring it to fit your end game. So a lot of people enter too many deals and they haven't really thought about that. And now they're stuck. But I would say you have to almost start with your exit strategies, where there should be more than one, and then work your way backwards to make sure the deal makes sense, right? And that's true in the commercial space, and it's true in resi space. One of the great things we used to do in the commercial space, we had 2 guys like you, young guys, smart, entrepreneurial, were willing to go out and do the work.
Handsome.
And they went to handsome.
No, I'm just kidding.
Good fathers.
Yeah.
And they went to the real estate managers for a couple of different companies in the dollar store space. Mm-hmm. And the dollar stores, as you guys obviously know, I mean, you're in the Southeast, Dollar General every 10 feet.
Yep.
Right? Like the joke, because that's my map when I drive through the Southeast. Right? When we're going through Alabama, we do a lot of business in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida. Mm-hmm. If there's not a Dollar General about every 8 miles, I start to get nervous and think I'm rural.
Yeah.
So, we use it as a roadmap almost. But all kidding aside for a second, you find out where they want to be, what zip codes they want to be in, and then what kind of frontage they need. And you go buy a defunct warehouse and you convert it to their box, right? And then they either land lease it from you or they buy it from you. And you're going to go in and buy that property, 10, 11 cap because it's been vacant, it's a little beat up, needs some love. And then you could reposition it to them at a 7 cap or 6.5 or 6, depending on what city you're in, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost a guarantee. The guy already told you they're looking in that zip code. This is the box we need. How many square feet? How big the ceiling height has to be? Do we need to have bays or not? Drive-in or loaders? Right? You understand exactly what they're looking for. They gave you the blueprint of what to go hunt for. Now, if you're going to go raise money and you can show somebody how you did that from back to forward, don't you think that's going to build a lot of confidence?
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think that's going to build some trust and credibility in what you're doing as the entrepreneur? I mean, that's impressive to come to a, quote, investor, right? Private lender, whatever we want to call them.
For sure.
Right? They're not the same, but to me, that's what you want to do. And if you started doing that at 21 years old, boy, wow, by the time you're 30, you're done. Yeah. Literally, you're sitting back and doing what everybody on Instagram is pretending to do, but you're really collecting checks, right?
Yeah.
The box money is real. And you put in a rough 8 years of your life?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You're going to be the coolest guy in the room. I used to tell one of my sons, what's 90 minus 30? And he was, I don't know. It's a trick question, right? No, what's 90 minus 30? And he would say, 60, right? I'd say, well, think of it this way. Think about it. It's the rest of your life. You went to high school. Sorry, Graham, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. You hated Graham. He was the coolest guy in the high school, right? Handsome, seemed to come from that family. He had the cool car. He got the best looking whatever, right? And now you're that person for 60 years because people's needs and wants change over time, right? And if you can show people you can live your life the way you want every single day, not irrationally, not irresponsibly, but having those things on wrap because you have those parts in place behind the scenes that people don't see. You are now that coolest guy in high school, but your high school is going to extend 60 years instead of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be, right?
For sure.
Who do you want to be?
Yeah,
that's why when I meet people like you guys doing it at such young ages, it's awesome. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm incredibly thankful. I was telling the broker I met with yesterday for lunch, some of the stuff that we were doing just to, like I told him, I was like, oh, this is not at all to sound like I'm bragging or anything. We're extremely fortunate. Like we've been so blessed. It's ridiculous. But this is like what we've been able to do in the last year and a half. Right. And I only say it to show you from day one that you can go do this. Like you don't think like I did that it takes 7 years to go do it. Like you can do it immediately. It's like, obviously you have to learn the business and you have to make the connections and do all that stuff. But just have that in the back of your head that you can do that. And he's like, that's insane, man. He's like, do you think other people, when you like go around, walk around, they have any idea like the type of stuff you guys are involved in? I was like, probably not, honestly.
Yeah.
But like, we don't care to go blasting it. I mean, we tell people about it on here because we want to educate people. And like I said, that's the main intent. It's not to be like, hey, look at what we're doing. Like, we're thankful for what we're doing. But the biggest reason is like, you are so like, anybody can do this. If me and Jesse can do this, anybody can do this. You just got to be like, get around the right people, take action, actually do something, and get after it. But I think something you mentioned that was so important, it goes back to kind of earlier what we were talking about. If you can get a little sliver in deals, it doesn't matter if you're a 1% owner, 5% owner, 10% owner. If you're involved in that deal and you take it through and run a successful business plan, let's say it's a 5-year hold, you buy it for a low basis, you rent it, you turn around, you sell it in 5 years. Well, if you were in that deal and you had something to do with that and you do a couple of those, now what you have is a track record, which is so important to what you said earlier, investors. It doesn't matter if you were a 100% owner. You were an owner in that deal and you helped operate it and you built a credible track record. And me and Jesse were looking at a deal we would have liked to buy ourselves, but we weren't necessarily in the position. And so we ended up partnering with somebody on it. And we're not getting 100% equity between the two of us. We're getting less than that. And I was telling Jesse, like, man, we got to remember this is building our track record. And this is going to be another deal that is, big picture, going to show that we did another deal and we accomplished it and we ran it well, whether we hold it, flip it, whatever. But it's adding to credit. It's adding credibility to what we're doing.
Here's the truth about learning commercial real estate. You can figure it out alone and it be painful, or you can learn from people who have already done it and it be so much less painful. Slava said it best. It's really just watching the people that came before us. They're open, they share how they do it, and we replicate their success. Danny told me this: Commercial Academy is my number one source of off-market deals. I just say I'm looking and deals start coming my way. That's the power of being in the room, knowing the right people and having the right network. Commercial Academy Live, Orlando, January 30th through February 1st, 2026. 3 days to learn from operators who have already done the deals. And it's 3 days to build a network that becomes your advantage. Text Blueprint to 888-653-1199 for an exclusive discount. I am telling all of my friends to come to this that are even on the fence about joining and being in commercial real estate. If you're already in commercial real estate, you 100% have to be there. See you there.
It's like people need to think of that as tuition.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is. The investor who you're going to go talk to next for your next deal to maybe put in a slug of $250,000 to, get that down payment, they're probably not going to ask you what percentage of that deal you owned.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's not, some people do, but that's in the minority questions that I get. Most people don't go, hey, Joel, do you own 100% of that? They want to see what we did, the process, and how we handle and manage it. And then what the reporting looks like to them on a quarterly basis. They're more interested in that. You have a login so they can log in from anywhere in the country or world when they're traveling. And they can see you got the rents in. Oh, good. Like, it's amazing. If you do some light renovation work in a building you just talked about, and you had investor partner money, and you send them video pictures of what's going on, it's like these rich people are thrilled with like new countertop or something, right? Or we put this sheetrock up, new drywall in the warehouse. Like, I can't believe that rich people get excited about that. But to your point about credibility, you are showing them that you're taking their money and doing with it what you told them you were going to do. That's the key. That's why they're excited, right? All kidding aside for a second. But people overlook that. And they'll say to me, you at this stage, you're sending guys videos every Friday of the progress of it? Yeah. And the next week they call me back and say, hey, God forbid if you're flipping that, I want to make sure on the next deal I'm in, because that's how you treat them, right?
Yeah.
You're understanding what they want. And you're giving it to them. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
But people haven't really been taught to think that way in schools in America. They think about taking a test. Oh, we're going to take a test. We're going to study to take a test. Well, that's not really learning how to think, right?
That's why I always like projects. I was more of a project guy than a test guy. Mm-hmm. I struggled hard on all the standardized tests just because I don't think I had the focus or anything for it. But a project I could sit and think about and like, okay, this is how I'm going to try to take it down. And entrepreneurship in itself is solving problems.
Right.
It's seeing a problem, filling the solution. You got an old warehouse that's, just draining money. Let's find a tenant. These are the two things you fix, you fill it. Talking about, switching to gears here to credibility. We were pitching the deal that Graham mentioned, where we borrowed hard money for the down payment. And we're just showing the track record to the group that we were presenting it to just to get feedback, and then also the investor. And I'll be honest, they had more confidence, honestly, in the whole deal than we did. They're like, well, you're the expert. You've done X, Y,
Right.
Z in this area, and you've done that. And like, you guys are in the area. Like, I think it's going to go smoothly. Like they had no worries in it, and we're happy to do it. And like after the call, is like, I mean, honestly, like they had more confidence in it than us. And then now that we've done that with them, that investor came back to us after the deal, was like so thankful for us, was so proud of us. Even the guy that we bought the building from is proud of us. That led us to the next deal we got under contract. And then that investor came back to us and was like, hey, let's do more deals. And
Right.
so now we're looking at the self-storage stuff. But like we mentioned earlier, but like that just goes to prove that like it's gonna snowball momentum. You got to take action, and it's going to keep coming. Work with those people that have the experience, and you're just going to come deal after deal after that.
You know, it's interesting you're talking about action, right? So I was a trader on Wall Street for 22 years. We were proprietary traders. We only traded for our own account. We didn't have any customers. We traded options on stocks, indexes, commodities. We're on the desk one day up in the office. I don't know. I think the first time like the local lottery jackpot went over like some ridiculous 1 billion number or something. And one of the guys on the desk turns around. My father was working with us at the time. He says, you know, Larry, this lottery thing is really hard to win. And my father says to him, you know, Al, it'd be much easier if you bought a ticket. To your point, if you're not out there trying to actively do this, you can't win. If you don't get in the game, Graham mentioned earlier, find someone who's experienced, beg them in, take a credit card, put $5,000 into a deal, 2 credit cards, $2,500 each, pay the cash withdrawal fee on the card, and count it as tuition. Follow the person around like you're their child. Begin to understand the whole process, start to finish. Document it. Take videos, because you're going to, as Jesse just mentioned, put this together in your next proposal. Well, I don't have any experience. Well, what have you been doing in life? Well, I work at this company. Have you ever been promoted? Have you ever been in charge of a budget? Are you in charge of transportation? Do you have to do logistics management? Right? These are things that all translate well into commercial real estate and real estate on the whole. Put it together. Put that resume together. Show your track record. Oh, you really think people would buy into that? They're going through the same things in life. Of course they would buy into it. They know how hard it is to do that. People, young guys like Jesse are coming after my job every day, right? So I have to have that out there all the time. I have to be building that. I have to be incorporating that into what I'm doing. It's a mistake not to think that way, but no one has taught people how to think. That's what I'm really upset with.
Yeah.
You know, we just started a podcast at Monmouth University here in New Jersey. And one of my real goals with the students is to help them learn how to think. To your point, Jesse, let's work on a project, because now you can't hide behind a quick multiple choice yes, no answer. You have to think about the process and keep applying A/B testing to see what makes more sense. Well, let's build a model so that Jesse can keep reapplying this model with some tweaks to individual deals. That's true. It's not going to be absolutely pure every time. But now Jesse and Graham, with their capital partners, can scale. And to your earlier point, Graham, nobody needs to even know, right? Nobody needs to see that. You don't need to drive in the Maybach down the street, right? You don't have to fly in on your own jet, right?
Jesse's a
Those
little
are
more
marketing
flashy.
machines.
He might be exposing that sooner than later. He wants to buy a Lambo and a Porsche and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
It's going to happen eventually.
But you know what? When his free cash flow is what's paying the monthly ticket, that's okay then.
Mm-hmm.
But to take the cash flow away to buy that is not the smartest decision you could make.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
I agree.
we tried to have this conversation with a young guy in our industry. He's done very well. And at a young age, he went out and bought one of those types of cars that cost, I don't know, some ridiculous amount. And by month 4 or 5, with the $1,100 monthly payment, plus another $900 or $1,000 in insurance because of his age. So at $2,000 a month, by month 5, he hated the car, right? It wasn't so cool anymore. He should have rented it for a month and paid $3,000. He got it out of his system,
Yeah.
right? And had people wave to him on the street in front of the cool restaurant. But after that, maybe you go buy something, a used whatever, 3 years old, costs $40,000. It's in great shape. It still has the same body style as the brand new whatever Beamer, right? But now you take the other $60,000, you put it into loans and you earn 12% on it. Or you put it into a commercial property that's going to yield you 10, 11 cash on cash, maybe 14, plus build over time, right? You have to make these smart decisions early, because compounding is the secret, right? It's interest starting to earn interest is how you can avoid being me. You don't have to work when you're 60. You don't want to do that, right? We want to help young people understand that early, because that's the power. And over time, it's just such a life-changing thing that you have to be part of it, or else you're going to be on the outside looking in. You'll spend your whole life afraid of ChatGPT and whatever other tools, right? Instead of starting to use these as your professional weapons, as your tool bag, right? My life changed 100 days ago. One of the guys in the office, young guy, instead of just pushing me out of the way of the computer and just doing it for me, actually started to make me learn how to use ChatGPT. My life's a whole different place 100 days later. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Instead of being afraid of it, right? People say, it does all the thinking for you. No, you have to train it to understand what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So it's not quite that simple, but these tools that are out there, people have to be plugging in with them. Everyone has a phone, so I don't want to hear the nonsense, well, I don't have enough money to get access. The $99 a month you're paying for the phone or whatever the number is, that's like going to Harvard Business School. You have the same access to all the same information as everybody. You want to learn about commercial real estate? There's a ton of stuff online. Is it perfect online? No. I need to still go beg in with Jesse and Graham who are actually doing it. So I can take some of the stuff, ask them the questions, focus on what really does transition well, and emphasize on the strengths and try to diminish the weaknesses, right? And stay away from that. To Jesse's point earlier, he understands his lane. He stays on that, stays in that zone, and that's his genius zone. And that's where he's strongest. And that's why when he makes the presentation to a group, he stays focused there because he knows it's going to go well. He doesn't veer off into other, gray areas and wastelands where he might get tripped up and not feel comfortable and then feel awkward in the meeting and lose all of his, his magic. You don't want to do that. There's no reason to do that. But a lot of these boot camps and classes, the guy jumps on stage, he just did this 1,000-unit deal, and no one can relate to that, right? Who can relate to Graham? Other than giving him money, people can't relate to him. But you talk to people who are in some of these syndications around the country, and they put in $100 grand, they're getting back $30 a quarter. I don't think that's really what they wanted to do.
No. Yeah. I think that's such a good point. Alex Ramosi is obviously a huge business mind. He's a genius in the business world. And he talks about how you can either pay for education in two ways, either time or money. And so I think being in some kind of group, like you said, there's a bazillion out there. You got to vet them because some of them will charge you $5 grand and just motivate you and that's it. And, rip you off. And then others are, will charge you $5 grand and give you a ton of value that you're going to jump ahead 5 years because you took that course. We're in Commercial Academy and we were talking them up well before we were sponsored by them. We're sponsored by them now. But, like I said, we were in that group and talking about them well before we were sponsored. So it's pretty cool. But that group of people is just, it's probably at this point like 100 maybe general partners, all who are just, way ahead of us. There may be like one or two people like the same level as us, but for the most part, we're definitely the dumbest guys in the room, but it's so valuable. We learn so much. And even just being in that group, one of the hard money lender we got was from that group. And there's several different people in those groups who are well ahead of us. And they'll reach out, hey, let's jump on a call this month and just talk about what we're working on. And you might get on a call with one of those people, and I have, and they'll say a little tidbit that might be normal to them, but then we hear it and we're like, oh my God, that's going to change our whole business. Just that little tweak. So anyways, the point of what I'm saying is, get into, we harp on this all the time on the podcast, but get into some kind of group, whatever it is, whether it's, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. Just get into some kind of credible investment, commercial real estate investment group where you can learn or get a mentor. We always say that too, but that's massively important.
Yeah, I think to your point, tons of people will complain about how much they spent to be in a mastermind or a coaching program. They never take the accountability of them not coming prepared and them not putting any effort in on their own. It's not to say every coach is worth the money. I'm not saying that. I agree with you, Graham. The worst beats of my career have been from not vetting the people. It has not been the sticks and bricks. Sticks and bricks are a math equation. You can solve it. You might lose money, but you can solve it and exit. If you're in the wrong partnerships and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that can set you back a long way and have major impacts on your career. You want to spend the time, as you just said, vet the group, vet the individual, make sure. Now, then you have to come prepared. If you invest $5,000 or $10,000 into these organizations and there's a real verifiable group of people and you can't get $5,000 or $10,000 of value back out, maybe meeting the right lender, maybe meeting the capital partner, maybe having the opportunity to joint venture with somebody else, including bringing no capital from your pocket. Maybe you only get 10% of the equity. Maybe you get 15. I don't know what you negotiate. But if you can't do that to earn your money back, onus is on your shoulders, not the other people. You have to be active, to Jesse's point earlier. You have to take action. You have to tell people what you want. No one's going to figure it out for you, right? We're not there like putting you in a headlock and just dragging you forward. Maybe sometimes on a job site, but all kidding aside for a second, you have to tell people what you really want and then marry up with the right people to get there, right? I mean, if you're not doing that, what are you actually doing? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. Don't do it. It's okay, but don't not be honest with yourself and blame the other people. It's just not a strategy that works.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are doers, so you really understand and relate to that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of people that you meet on the road, they're like kind of interested if it would be easy. They're not committed though. And if
100%.
you're not committed, don't spend 10 grand. That's a waste of money.
There's one easy way to differentiate yourself than everybody else. Everybody's got ideas, everybody's got dreams and aspirations, but literally the only difference between us and anybody else and you and yourself and other people is just taking action. That's it. Just go after it. It doesn't matter even if I'm not going to say if it's the wrong step, it doesn't matter. Try to take the right steps forward, but at least take a step forward. You're probably going to fail, you're going to mess up, you're going to learn something though, and then it's going to help you. But Joel, I got a question for you. So Joel didn't ask us to do this. He didn't come on the podcast to be, promoted or anything like that. But I want to know, tell us about your company and your lending and how, give us the elevator pitch of how you could help people listening wanting to get into deals and also us too, how we could utilize you in your service.
100%.
So we lend all over the country under the BRRRR name.
Yep.
So buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. Made famous on Bigger Pockets for a lot of real estate investors.
RIP.
And yeah, yes. So for us, plugging in with people, I've been at this since 1996. We've been very fortunate to have a tremendous amount of repeat borrowers. Some have borrowed from me. I think the longest is 18 years direct. We have lent to 1 to 10 family, up to 30 units. We've lent to warehouses. We've lent to gas stations. We've lent to hotels. We've done tons of private loans where we're someone who you might come to and partner up with on a deal, and we'll put some equity into a deal. Not every deal. So if we get 100 phone calls, we're not going to be able to do it 100 times. Okay. But we will work our way through that. I think our experience in the field of having really operated, built ground up is able to help a lot of people in their jobs. Sometimes, people come to us and we'll go through the math, just tell them the truth. Look, I don't really think that's a deal. You might make some money, but the markets aren't just going straight up anymore. I wouldn't take the risk of hoping for higher. To me, that's a hope. That's not really a smart business play.
100%.
So we want to help people with that, even though sometimes that honesty is not great, not what they want to hear. But if I can help somebody stay out of harm's way, I wish somebody would have done that for me 20 years ago, right? Type of thing. So I think our experiences, we're generally a family-owned, operated. We have 11 people. I think everybody in the company, except for maybe one person, I've literally known since they're 8 years old or born. So there's a lot of trust, and they understand that the customer comes first. What they need is more important than what we need.
Yeah.
We don't need to make $500 more on a deal from them. What we need to do is to become their trusted partner and be able to work together for the next decade. They always have friends to refer if you do things the correct way. Same thing in operations when you're building your resume and track record of success and being able to move from one project to the next. Same concepts, right? No different. We're running businesses. We have to build that way. Trust, credibility, the willingness to execute and do what you say you're going to do, even if it costs you a little bit of money internally. That is probably one of our strongest points. We work on a lot of harder deals. Some of the gigantic firms we compete with can get all the easy ones, but guys like us have to be a little more deal centric and be able to work through those and understand them quickly and be able to get you to the closing table. And that gives us a little bit of a competitive edge, I think, because unlike a lot of people, we're not just an Excel spreadsheet telling you the rate all day. We've actually done what you're doing, and we continue to do it now. And I think that helps us a lot with people.
For sure. So help us understand, when someone would come to you, is it any lending or is it, more like bridge lending or is it more like hard money lending or what kind of category do you guys fall into?
We're doing both. First off, we only lend to investors, right? No owner-occupied primary residences. We don't do that at all. So we're lending to investors, rental properties, mixed-use properties, warehouses, etc. Bridge loans, up to 12 months, 18 months, maybe 24 occasionally, where people need to reposition something and they either sell it or go to long-term finance. In some of those types of scenarios, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac may be our takeout. The SBA could be a takeout, depending on what you're doing. Traditional commercial banks are often the takeout, but we're doing some of those bridge loans. We also do 30-year fixed rate loan without tax returns, no personal income verification. People like that.
Like DSCR, basically?
Yes. And if you have the audacity to make the payments, we don't even put it on your credit report. So a lot of people like that. A lot of professional investors like that.
On commercial deals too?
Yes. All of our loans are commercial loans in the traditional sense of what you're used to seeing paperwork wise. It'll look the same as what you're used to, maybe slightly different than what somebody's used to when they close their primary residence. You know, we're going to have some of the documents that you guys are used to seeing. This is a business purposes only loan. You're making a personal guarantee. The entity is the borrower. You're going to maybe pledge your entity, right, as a guarantor. So some of the things that people are more used to on the commercial side and not on the residential side are included in our document package.
And you're doing 30 years on like even a commercial warehouse, or
yes.
You guys are doing.
Wow. We can do that. Now, the rates are going to be about realistically 150 basis points higher than what you're used to from a bank for that type of loan on a warehouse. So
right now, maybe like 8-ish%.
It'll be right now, the loan we're closing on the 18 unit is at 8.25 or 8 3/8.
Okay.
Now, person is self-employed. They don't want to provide tax returns. It's a slightly different world, right?
Yeah.
But the property.
The bank, the property.
That's where all the merit's at, the property.
Yes, exactly. The cash flows of the property.
How does that change if the warehouse, we'll just keep using warehouses as our example. Let's say it's vacant. How does that work? And then could you guys do like a cost plus fix? Like I know that's something you see a lot of times in like the residential flip world, but trying to like pull that into commercial, we'll see what you guys can do.
So we do that in the commercial world. We do. We would do a bridge loan on a vacant property, provide renovation budget as well. We're probably going to only lend to a max of 70% loan to value and loan to cost on that scenario. So people need to be prepared for that. Okay. Now, as the private lender in that scenario, I don't really care where you're getting that 30% from. So if you have private capital partners and they're going to run that money through your entity that is borrowing from me, I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. I'm not Wells Fargo. I'm not scrubbing that as hard backwards. Okay. Now, at the last moment, a $400,000 deposit comes into your account, I may ask you where it came from, but we're not going to tell you we can't do the deal because of it. Okay. So we want to do things that make sense. We're really property centric. That asset has to make sense to me. In those cases, I'm lending under the 100% assumption that I'm going to own the property. I don't want to. I don't want you not to be successful. I need you to be successful. You have our money in your hands. Mm-hmm. Right. But we're lending to assets that we're comfortable with in that sense.
Got it.
Right. We have one deal we're just finishing up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, down your way right now. And, it was totally based on the asset value. So we can do that. We did some stuff in Myrtle Beach recently in South Carolina that way. We're pretty comfortable with that. We've been around a long time. We've been in a lot of different types of deals. So I feel like we have some experience to be able to bring to the table. Mm-hmm. People say, well, I'm getting this at a great price. It's a really low loan to value. But from the lender side, what would it cost me if you failed to actually get it rent ready? Would I have to reposition? Would I have to reconfigure? How much will that cost? Because that LTV is very different to me than to you going in. And I have to think of it that way. So I like a warehouse that's wide open. It's easy to work with if I'm stuck in that scenario, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you break it down into 4 different commercial condominium units that you're going to send out or sell out to or rent out to various contractors. That's a pretty common play right now. Or you're going to take that warehouse and convert it into apartments. That's a common play that we see people in value add all the time. Those make sense. Those stories make sense. Sometimes, as you can imagine, and if you heard for yourselves, somebody will call you up. The story is so convoluted, you can't even follow it. And you ask them, like, close your eyes, retell the story, put your hand on the imaginary checkbook. And when done with that story, would you write the check? And, basically they have to be honest for a moment and they say no. So how can they expect me to? So to your earlier points, be prepared, be organized with the project, have it well laid out, be able to explain it to a 5th grader and make it make sense. Not every deal is a deal, but when they are relatively easy to get funded. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true.
It is.
Now that can mean 90 out of 100 don't get funded. Some deals circulate in the market, as you guys have seen, for years because honestly, there would. They shouldn't get funded. But those other 10 make sense, and there's a lot of competition to fund for you, right? That's the good part. So if you lock in on something good, you're not just going to only be able to go to Joel. You're going to have multiple outlets that are available to you. Again, showing that to your capital partners is building your track record, your credibility. You're showing them you've already paid the tuition. You have the outlets in place. You're showing them all the pieces have been accounted for. And that's what people want. That's really what money wants. Right? right? They want to work with people who are serious professionals. They know everything doesn't go perfect, but I would think when you've spoken to your capital investors and capital partners and approach new ones, what I find is they're most interested in two main things. They ask me about the safety and security of the deal. They don't start out by what's the interest rate I'm going to earn, how much money are you going to make on the deal. They don't start there. They want to get down quickly and understand that their money's going to be safe and secure with two guys they trust as the lead players that have done something in their lives that show me they're capable and make me feel confident and comfortable, safe and secure that they can execute this plan.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about the financials, but you got to get through that first.
And something you mentioned too that I don't want to gloss over that people probably don't realize is that, if we go to the regular bank, then we're probably going to get, right now, like for example, probably get about 20-year amortization period, which is basically how long the payment's calculated over, like what it's divided by. And then maybe 6.5, 6.7-ish, around that mark, right? But if you take it at 8% or 8.25% over 30 years, sure, you're going to pay more interest over the course of 30 years, but I mean, there's likely a balloon anyways, but your payment's going to be lower. So if you're just holding that property for 2, 3, 4 years and you can have that increased cash flow, that could make or break a deal.
True.
Yeah, I think people get too focused on the interest rate all the time and need to be more focused on what should my tool bag of lenders look like, right? Because I'm going to need to to your point, plug someone in at different parts in different deals in different parts of the deal. And I need to have multiple outlets. I have to have multiple choices because some deals fit better in certain boxes than others. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing everything one way all the time, you're probably missing out on opportunities because they don't fit the box. Instead of maybe finding 3 or 4 people to work with on the back end financially that have some different things to offer and bring to the table to you so that you have more flexibility and maybe you could do some other deals and you add some value to it. And now you have a windfall of $500,000 or $1 million, right? But you would have passed because it didn't fit their box. Well, that's a shame. But again, that comes back to your homework, the groups you're in that help you learn how to think like that, show you their experiences so you can get more comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. So it's not all foreign to you or, hey, first time, right? That changes the dynamic. And again, that speaks to what we talked about earlier. That also dictates that you have to come prepared to do your work. You're there to learn, not there to complain. How come you don't do it this way? Well, the person who's explaining this has done this 100 times and has amassed a net worth net of $50 or $60 million. Maybe me, the learner, should shut up, take the notes, and put them on my wall and read them every day and just do what they did, right? Instead of going, well, how come, hand goes up, how come you don't do it this way? Because that way is keeping you in the chair here, and that's why I'm up here. Like, you don't want to be a wise guy, but sometimes the questions are ridiculous, right? We're laying it out. We're giving it to you for free. We're not for free. You're here for $999 for the weekend. Okay. But we're giving you the blueprint. Why can't you just execute the blueprint that's been proven to generate hundreds of millions of dollars of value for people? Why do you want to fight with that?
Joel, I got one last question, and unfortunately I have a hard stop, so we have to cut it a little short here. But so you mentioned you guys can do a 70% loan to cost. Let's say that I get the seller to agree to a 30% second position note. Do we have a deal?
For me personally, no. I want you to have some skin in the game. Now, do I have an avenue that we could do? We could probably do 10, 20, 70. Yes. Okay. And where you got the 10 from, I don't know where you got the 10 from type of thing. That can work.
We got one bank is a local bank, so we're kind of shocked, but they said they might be able to do 5, like 5 to 10. You guys, there's no scenario where you'd ever do 5%?
No.
No worries.
Look, as you're building your relationships, you're changing the dynamic and, quote, the rules of what people will do for you.
Yeah.
As you prove over time that you're a good customer.
Yeah.
No, look, we have a rule book, but the rule book doesn't pertain to someone. We have one guy who's literally closed 36 months in a row. He's never missed a payment. The deals always make sense. Mm-hmm. We don't really have a rule book for him.
That's awesome.
Right, anymore.
Interesting. That's awesome.
So, it's a two-way street. We want to retain really good customers and clients, right?
Yeah.
And make them part of our family and then become friendly with them. And I eventually want to do a deal with them myself as a true equity partner. So, we're thinking entrepreneurially too.
Yeah.
We don't want to just say no to you, Jesse. We want to understand what we're doing. And maybe there's a way to make it make sense. Let's talk, right? Okay. To me, that's an important part of what we do.
Yeah.
You can call some of the huge shops and they'll just say, no, look, that doesn't not what we do. Okay. But that gives me an opportunity to meet Grahams and Jessies of the world
Yep.
and do business with them. And both of us grow together, right? That's a beautiful partnership.
Yeah.
100%.
Right? The other guy might be able to beat me by an eighth on the rate, maybe, but they can't do what you need. So what difference does it make? People show us, oh, I got this term. I know that term sheet's not closing. That's why you're showing it to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That doesn't mean I can be yards apart, but I have to be a little apart from there to be able to execute for you. There should be some value in that for you, right? And if there's no value for you, we're the wrong partners. But if there is, maybe we could do something long term together, the next decade. Because you guys are going to grow for 10 more years. And I want to be part of that team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's two quick 100%. Things I want to make a note on, just I think they'll be valuable for the audience. One, talking about the rate, like you said, like somebody might see the rate and exclude them. Like, okay, well, here's a prime example. Our first deal we bought, our interest rate, guess what it was? 8.5%. 8.5% on a regular bank loan. Why? Because we hadn't bought any commercial deals. It was a relationship we had been developing, but they said we could do the loan, but it's 8.5% because one, it's a much smaller deal, but we bought it for $250,000, and two, you guys are brand new. So, a lot of people would say 8.5%. That's insane. No, we're not going to do that. It's way too much money. The rate right now is maybe 7.25. No, I'm not going to do that. And they get hyper fixated on the rate. However, we did that deal, built a track record. Our tenant now has a option to purchase our building, which he's working on getting his financing in place for right now as we speak, for $410,000. So we bought it for $250,000. And in a year and a half ish, we'll probably sell for $410,000. And that's not, like I said, not to toot our horn. That's to show you that, we went for it. And because of that, we're in the game. If we had passed on a little, measly interest rate, I don't know the math. What's the difference on a percent interest rate over a year and a half versus clearing $175,000? You just got to do it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, there's a great book called Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur. It's probably one of my favorite books I've read in commercial real estate world. It's about a real estate attorney who saw his clients, commercial real estate attorney, saw his clients doing all these deals, making all this money. He got into the game. Then he tells a bunch of deal stories. So it's really interesting. But he puts it that you got to think about the bank is that they need you more than you need them. Like they need good clients, and that's a big perspective change. Because in the beginning, you go to the bank. I was all timid and like, they're trying to qualify us, and we need them really badly. But in reality, the bank needs clients just as much. They got to operate. They need good, successful operators who will run deals and do deals, or else they won't be in business.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
people don't realize how much they bring to the table as the borrower, and they're so bogged down in their own head that the bank's going to reject them that they show up that way and they get rejected. But to your point, understanding that the entrepreneur is an important part of the equation and a crucial part of the equation at that changes everything. And again, the person who missed on that deal that you're talking about, they're very textbook and classroom oriented versus being an entrepreneur and being project oriented like Jesse. To see your way to the extra $150,000, versus fighting over $280 a month for 18 months, like they just don't understand how it works.
Yeah,
they're looking at the wrong yardsticks, right? Yes, of course you don't want to borrow at 8.5 when the market's 7 forever, but might you have to do it once or twice? Yeah, you might. It's tuition. It's how you get established relationships. And you know what? After you have the property for a year or two and the market's still 7, you can refinance lower. You're established. You're not going to be, this is not pain you have to suffer for 20 years, right? So there's opportunities to change that dynamic. But if that's what it costs to get in one time, you're talking about $3,600 for the year, right? That's $5,400 versus making $170,000.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Exactly.
Right? If you're in the parking lot, you get excited when there's a $20 bill on the floor, right?
Yeah.
You pick it up, like, whoa, that's a great day. But here you just passed on the opportunity to make yourself $164,500 or something like that because you were obstinate up front, like so narrow-minded. So again, being in those types of masterminds opens up the world, retrains your tools, your thinking, retrains your thinking, giving you many more tools to work from. And you can end up like Graham and Jesse on the right road to big and great things and being a handsome guy.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. I think it'll be very valuable to our listeners. But before we
100%.
finish up here, what's the best place for people to reach out to you if they have questions or want to help, use your service?
The easiest places are right at our website at BRRRR.com, which is B with 4Rs.com. You can go to our free school community at BRRRR Masters. You can find us on Instagram at BRRRR_loans. And we don't use bots. We actually respond to people. So if you're interested, by all means, please check us out. We love to talk to you. We appreciate the opportunities to be on with you guys and just chop it up. I'm a real estate junkie for a long time, and this is what I really love to do. So I wish everybody much success out there. And if you have questions, tap in with us all, and we're here to help you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joel. This has been great. Another good episode. So hope you guys enjoyed 100%. It, and we will see you in the next one.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.